Welcome to the Coaching Edge podcast with your co-hosts, Dr. Steve Jeffs and Erwin de Grave. Each episode, we bring you expert guests and transformative coaching insights. Let's dive in.
And today we're here together to talk with Martin Rüegg. Hello, Martin.
Hi, Erwin. Nice to be here.
Pleasure to have you here. And hello, Steve, of course.
Oh, hello. Hey, Erwin, welcome, Martin. I'm really excited for our conversation today. Martin and I have been working for a couple of years in various ways together, and Martin is a business leader, so has a career as a business leader in leadership himself, and transitioned across to coaching, and works with leadership executives individually, but also at the team level. And I'm excited to hear a little bit about that journey. But Martin, what do you want people to know about you as we start this conversation today?
Yeah. Hi, Steve. Great to be back in a conversation with you, which always inspires me. I actually started my own coaching business like 2.5 years ago, and it's going really well. It's an exciting journey. As you just said, Steve, after a long leadership career in global multinational companies, I really followed my passion to become a coach and help other people to grow, leaders to grow, teams to establish like a high-performing culture with strong connections. So that's I'm really passionate about what I'm doing.
I love it. High-performing culture with strong connections, you said. Well, let's dance with that for a second. What's important about those strong connections inside a high-performing team culture?
You know, throughout my work in business, we often focus on tasks and content and processes. But what's really making the difference, and I experienced that with several organizations I've been building, is what really makes the difference when people strongly connect. This brings projects to success. This brings organizations to be high performing. As I said, it's that relationship aspect which is the true lever from my experience.
So I love the topic of leadership, and certainly in organizations. So you said you started like coaching 2.5 years ago. How did you get first in contact with coaching?
Well, I started with coaching about 10 years ago, in fact. So but I started my own business about 2.5 years ago.
Oh.
So the topic is what I just said. I was leading a large project management organization, and at one point my boss came to me and said, "I don't want to hear these escalations anymore about these projects. So do something about it, Martin." And I started to train these project managers in leadership, in change management, in stakeholder management, in conflict resolution. All these things, and so this kind of triggered my curiosity about the people side, and so I went on that journey. I did a first coaching training about 8 years ago, and this was kind of the moment when I started to have a second path in my life, which eventually went or became my profession, or my passion, and what I actually like to do. Yeah.
So before, what were you done before? You said you were working in companies, or were you like a consultant, or what were you before?
I was a leader in a large IT organization. So telecommunication earlier, but then in a pharmaceutical domain. But I was running IT organizations of different sizes, local, global, in different segments of the business. So that was.
So you made a movement from leadership and technology towards coaching, basically.
Yes, exactly. I'm actually an engineer. I'm still an engineer.
I'm an engineer. Cool. What kind of
So,
engineer?
so I really, yeah, I transformed in a way. I had to unlearn a lot of things actually on that on that journey.
What are you, a civil engineer or?
Say again, please.
Are you a civil engineer or what kind of engineer are you?
Electrical engineer. Yeah.
Oh, that's a big change from electrical engineering to coaching.
Yeah. Maybe it's in my genes. So my father was a very technical guy, and my mother was a psychologist. So somehow I have both things in me. So.
Yeah.
What was the biggest thing you had to unlearn in this transition into coaching?
Well, it's probably as a leader, you always have like the objective and the target and the direction in mind, and you lead towards that, and you lead your organization and your people towards that in a way of controlling or at least inspiring that direction. And I think as a coach, you take a totally different role. It's about letting go your agenda, your perspective. It's diving deeply into the space of your client or of your coachee or of the specific team, and just letting go your thinking at least for until you're part of it. You feel it and you sense it.
So what kind of coaching do you do? You mentioned a little bit about leadership, but what is specifically, do you work with leaders or do you work with teams with a leader or do you work just with the team? What is specifically do you do within organizations?
Well, as you know, it always depends. It's it depends on the context. But well, I have several situations. So it can be that I worked only with the leader about his or her leadership. To really embrace leadership fully and step into that, deal with specific challenges in leadership, might be upwards or towards the team. Really depends on the situation. With teams, I typically work including the leader, but sometimes it's good to exclude the leader, at least for for a certain time, or actually, to it really depends on the case.
What do you mean by that? Like, give us a little bit more context.
By excluding the leader, you mean? Huh?
Yeah, like sometimes but sometimes it's good to exclude. And there was this smile that kind of came out as you said that.
A recent experience I have is actually that it was a team with a really low engagement, very traditional, long-standing team in a public sector, and the team was there was also like a tension, if not saying conflict, with the leader. So we had to go into a step to actually work only with the team without the leader, I included the leader at the start, at the end, but in between, I was only working with the team.
And what was important, and what was the impact of that?
I think what was important is it was still the leader was still present at the start of that specific workshop, and to actually set the frame, manage the expectations. And then it was about really letting the team to step up and start to shape their direction. And honestly, it was a very difficult situation. So as I said, it was a low engagement situation. So there was a lot of groan going on in the team, which as a coach, as a team coach, I had to create that space and hold that space, and have the courage to let this process happen. But eventually the team stepped up and said, well, we cannot just sit here. And obviously there was an invitation to shape. So they stepped up, and towards the end of the day, the leader came back and actually presented what they created during the day. So that was a very strong moment of, I would say, cohesion when the leader came back and the team was in a different mood.
I bet that would have been surprising for the leader often. I love I want to say creativity around this, to be able to hold that the leader is part of the team, that the leader is the role. And if there's tension in that hierarchical gap between the team and the leader, to go, actually, well, you've set direction, kind of step aside. Let's create the safety to help people step forward, to help people show up, to help people start to engage, at least in conversation. And then from there to build the cohesion, build that sense of togetherness. And then, of course, to reconnect it. My guess is that that isn't the whole story and there's other stuff going along. But it sounds like that was a really great way for you to help people give themselves permission to show up in the conversation.
Exactly. It's as you say, it's a journey, and that's just a flashlight of one situation. But the journey is actually working with the leader about really stepping into his leadership role in a challenging leadership situation. And on that journey, it was important to create that moment where the leader is not present for at least for a certain time. Yeah.
How did the leader feel about not being included in that period?
Well, in this case, Erwin, it needed the direction and kind of the consulting from my side to give the leader the confidence that it's okay to step out, or it's even a benefit. And it was well, it was not particularly difficult, but it was important to also be a companion to that leader and helping the leader to take that step and have the courage to let this process happen.
And how did the leader felt at the end when he or she came back and they presented work?
Yeah, he was very happy about the situation. I can tell you, it was like Steve mentioned, it was a surprise and a satisfaction you could see in his face and in his comments, and about having had this courage to let go and give it over to a coach and coach, or have the coach at least guide or lead the team.
So the message really here is sometimes for a leader, it's important also to step aside if it's the right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. So you mentioned the dynamic between coach, consultant, like how do you navigate those different roles, especially with you having leadership experience, working with leaders? You do have kind of technical expertise. You do have opinions on what they should be doing. And then there's this coaching how do you manage those hats?
Well, sometimes it's difficult, I can tell you. You really have to step back and be very conscious of what's going on. I think consciousness is at the center. What's going on? Where are you as a coach or consultant? What hat are you currently wearing? And well, having said that, I think as a coach, well, when you do coaching training, and I did several, so at the center was the coactive training, which you were my mentor, Coach Steve, and it's you learn to really let go totally, and you just go, you dance with your client, but I think as you start to fine-tune your offering and your service towards your clients or your coachees, it's about also bringing in this experience, bringing in perspectives, at least offering these perspectives, And I think when you see a client struggling with a certain situation, I think it's kind of, I don't know, arrogant if you don't bring in your perspective, huh? At least, but it's more the how you do that. It's not being directive and or consulting like, here's the concept, do it this way, and you will be successful. It's more co-creating with your client and bringing in your perspective as your expertise as well.
So tell us a little bit more about that how, because this is definitely a place where certainly as new coaches, we often struggle because coach training says, keep your opinion, keep your perspective, self-manage yourself out. It's all about the client. And here you are, and I teach the people that I'm working with as well, we come to a point where now that we can hold that stuff back, we can self-manage ourselves out. Now it's time to bring in the whole of us in service of and how it's relevant to our clients. So what have you found helps or works in the how of articulating your experience or opinion or what you're seeing things to be able to contribute to the conversation with more than just questions?
As I said, it's about consciousness. So consciously offering perspectives, framing that moment when I bring in my perspective, and explicitly framing that moment by asking if I can share my perspective, or by asking if I can give in my experience, and by framing I mean, and then doing that, and then like ending with a question again. It's like we typically do in coaching, ending with a question, say, so how does that resonate? Can you use something of this perspective? Does that inspire a new idea or something like that? So that's probably how I do it. It's by framing it with questions.
I love it. So just to kind of recap what I heard there, one, you started with consciousness. So this is about being aware of where we are, what the urge is, what's going on. I'm sensing there's an internal question of, wait, is now the time? Is this for me? Is this in service of the client? That all kind of leads to that place of, hey, I've got something to contribute. Do I have permission? Am I able to? And then, of course, articulating it. And I'm hearing in a non-directive, non-judgmental, but hey, this is what I'm experiencing or feeling. And then to hand, I guess, back the metaphorical ball back to the client. I go, wow, well, that's my perspective. What are you hearing or what are you taking from what I've said, so that you can move away from what you've said, but have them integrate that into their own experience. And then you can move back into coaching with whatever they're taking from what you've shared.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly how I do it. I think what probably is a bit specific, or what I also do, is I try to highlight the context of my experience. So it's, or when I bring in something, and for example, I'm coaching like a mid-sized company in this industrial sector, 100 people, very different to what I have experienced in my career. And I know the rules and the context of a smaller company is very different. So there I'm trying to discuss with my client, what does the experience maybe of a larger organization bring in, or what's the learning we can take in, or the client can take into a smaller company. So the context is equally important from my perspective.
I believe as well, and please correct me, Martin, if that's not correct, but people also not only organization not only contract you as you being the coach, but also with the whole experience that you have behind. And I believe that they sometimes would tell me, what would you have done if you would be in my position? Tell me, because they're not only contracting you as a coach, they also contract you with the whole experience that you bring.
Yeah, yeah. It's absolutely right. That's it's really it's one of my USPs that I bring that experience, and uh, I when I design the relationship, this often comes up, and so that yes, we hire you because you have like whatever an IT background or a senior leadership background or something like that. And in this designing this alliance, we all already agree that I will answer. I will not answer immediately. I will answer with questions in order to spark this co-creation process.
Yeah.
Yes, I was going to ask about that, but you just touched on that. So there's the design, there's the real clarity around expectations. You also touched on what was important about not doing what's traditionally expected. You know, you're an expert in IT or in leadership. I bring you in because you're an expert in IT and leadership, and you tell me you're not going to answer questions. That feels not logical until you say, I'm going to ask the questions to spur ideas, to see things a different way, to explore things differently. My experience is going to inform the types of questions that I ask. So you're not going to not get that.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's not going to be what we lead with because my experience was over there. It's not over here. And so the questions allow us to explore what's happening to be able to move forwards. And I'll bring the stuff in when it's relevant, but that's the focus. Is that?
Yeah. Yeah, that summarizes it well, Steve. I'm not holding back this experience. The client gets the benefit of the experience, but just in a non-traditional way. And this is why designing this at the start and having the buy-in for this, the way or the how from the client is very important. But it's also very successful, I can tell you. It's what they love at the end of the day.
Exactly. So we're talking about organization, we're talking about coaching. So, Martin, what are the main challenges that organization have in relation to coaching or when they come in contact with coaching? And how do you help them to overcome those challenges?
Well, it's very often you're called in when there are problems, which is late, typically late. So I like to be coaching teams and leaders who want to grow and establish and new teams. But it's often, I would say, when you ask about challenges, it's often fix something or they invite you to fix something. At the end of the day, they have to fix it with the help of a coach. Huh? What I often see is frictions within teams, conflicts, pressure, high pressure situation, which leads to very reactive behaviors within the team or from the leader. Pressure can be whatever, timelines or financial pressures, and then it's about helping them to become aware and conscious what's going on. Sometimes it goes even into the direction of mediation, helping parties to come together again and learn that they actually have the same goal or the same vision and helping them to connect again. So these are often challenges I experience. And another one is when in merger context, I'm coaching a team or an organization where two cultures come into play, which is very challenging in the first place for the leaders to do that. And as a coach, I think we can help a lot to help people see the value of diversity once they overcome their own boundaries and their own judgment about the others. Huh?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I had a few of those as well. And it's really challenging. how do you manage, or how do you play around with those different cultures in a way that you get the result that the top level that decided for the merchant to get there?
Very, very difficult question. To be honest, I struggle sometimes with that, and I in such cases I even need coaching myself to have someone to bounce ideas and see how I deal with it. But what I typically do, and this comes from my change management experience. It's about helping them to have a vision, to have their joint why, and it's often about accepting that this, whatever in the merger situation, that this merger happened. It's helping them to connect on the why, and sometimes this takes time. Sometimes I work with the leader on his or her communication of the why and the reinforcement. It's not only said with once, so you have to hear that several times, this why. And from that point, starting typically with the leaders or the leadership team, to start to role model a more integrated, inclusive environment, so teams and people can follow. Long journey.
It's a
I really love where you're pointing there. There's something about leadership that certainly in my experience, people forget. And that's like the metaphor of like actual leading and people following. And this is not just about, because you used the definition of leadership. Oh, when I was a leader, I had to set the vision. I had to kind of point us. Well, there's this whole thing around culture where if leaders don't do it, people won't follow it. And that's what I'm hearing in what you're saying is that, well, actually, to start with, we can set policies and directives and we can have punishments and we can send memos and emails and whatever. But actually, I'm working with the leader to change how they communicate, change how they view themselves, the different parts, to actually start to embody some of the elements of the cultural change that we want to be embedding. And that way people can start to learn from it, to follow it. They can see that it's safe and they can start to do it. It's such an important step, that lead by example piece.
Absolutely. And in a recent example, it's a merger situation. There was a new head hired, external, and it's about like really understanding this why and getting the leaders of the former organizations on board on this why. And interestingly, this happened at some point. It needed team coaching of the leadership team in the first place. And this happened at some point. And then an interesting thing is that I would say the barrier or the conflict barrier moved down in the organization. So the leader changed the camp in a way, and a new friction started to be of the former leader of the one of the merger sides. The new friction came up with his team in this case, which then needed another intervention on that team level.
I love it. That's such a great example of what progress can look like. Mm-hmm. In a complex situation like this, progress isn't the absence of conflict. It's a different conflict that starts to emerge. I love the metaphor that the conflict barrier moved down. Mm-hmm. Wow, we've got some clarity here. Now we can start to explore the second ripple, to use that as a metaphor, and then the third, and then the next, and then the next. It's not that the conflict's going away, it's that it's changing as the organization starts to change and embody some of these things. Mm-hmm. That's really interesting.
Something I'd like to add is I'm not doing that on my own. So it's often I love to co-host, co-coach with others, and specifically in such complex situations, it can be scary. To be very honest, when I met this client, I was wondering if I should take that, huh? And but I somehow had the confidence that I have sufficient topics and people around me who can help me to navigate that. And I brought in at least one additional coach to work with me in a co-creation mode.
I love it. And how do you show up differently when you have a co-coach at your back?
Well, it's a lot about safety, but we navigate in team coaching. We often navigate complex situations and things that evolve. Which, so yeah, you can have a plan, but often the plan is good to have something in your hand, but it will change, huh? And it gives, like with a second coach or even more, it's about helping, co-creating that safe space and helping each other to navigate that.
Love that. There's something so powerful about team that we often forget when we transition from whatever into this entrepreneurial way of being as a coach, where we'll often have to do things for ourselves and by ourselves. But to remember that a big value that we bring as a coach is creating that connection, creating that synergy, creating that team with our client or our clients. And that, well, we're human too. And so to be able to have our own team around us, whether it's a co-coach, it's our own coach to bounce ideas off, whether it's a PA or someone in marketing or someone part of a mastermind program, there's something about that that allows us as humans to be, well, better and able to focus where we get to focus in a way that's authentic. I think it's a great reminder. Changing gears for just a second. So as a business owner, you started your business as a coaching business from what you said. Mm-hmm. What's been the biggest challenge for you as the owner and founder of your coaching business from a business perspective?
Yeah. Well, as you go on that journey to be a coach, and I said that's my passion. Huh? This doesn't mean that I'm a great sales guy, or so it's about, the challenge is about having all these hats, different hats, and changing them, like whatever, doing acquisition, doing, I don't know, the whole bookkeeping stuff and establishing the legal company and all these things, like switching these hats constantly. And there are things you like more and some you like less. Well, obviously you like to do coaching, huh? So yeah, I would say that was the challenge for me, to switch these roles, and in order to show up and present myself through a website, and so this was an everlasting journey, which I didn't like it, but it turned out to be good at the end of the day. But that's really a challenge.
I love it. Any tips on what you've learned on how to manage those different hats?
Mm-hmm. It's about consciousness again. Where am I at the moment? Huh? And consciously saying, so now I'm the CEO, and now I even started to frame my agenda with colors. So that's delivery, that's preparation, that's business development. So at some point, I really was doing colors in my agenda to be more aware of what's going on.
Conscious and intentional is what I'm hearing. Mm-hmm. Where am I and where do I want to be as I approach this? It's one of those coaching questions we'll often ask. It's like, who do you want to be as you take that action? It sounds like that's the approach that has helped you so that you can show up as the CEO when you need to be the CEO, as the coach when you need to be the coach, and not kind of get them mixed up.
Mm-hmm. And what's also very powerful is to connect yourself with like-minded people and coaches who are maybe in that process, or maybe a little bit ahead, whatever, a couple of years. So, and I found that really eye-opening. So the coaches, they connect well, And coaches have communities, and if you join such a community, and I'm part of 2 communities, you get help, you get inspiration by just talking to other coaches, which I think which is an incredible resource when you do that.
Very nice. Martin, I think we had a very interesting talk with you about organizational leadership, and certainly how to find your way and manage as a coach within that different kind of structure, because suddenly certain people and certain clients would say, well, I want you to be the consultant. No, I am the coach, and I'm going to, because they're going to ask you for it. And when you're laughing, that means it's correct, and I know it is.
It is, yes.
So thank you very much. If people would be interested to find more about you, Martin, where can they find you?
If people are interested to connect with you and learn more, reach out to you, Martin, what are the best ways people can find you?
Well, contact me through my website. So my email is there. I think even my phone number is there. So
what's the address of your website?
It's martinrüegg.ch. So that's maybe you just add it in the comments.
We'll put it in.
It's a Swiss last name, which is very hard to pronounce in English. Yeah. Right. Please reach out. I'm really happy to share experience, and I always learn from others.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Martin. It's been great to reconnect and have this conversation. I've definitely enjoyed this conversation. It's always great to see your insights, your experience, and for all of us as coaches to learn that while we're all different, there's a lot of similarities in our journeys. And as you said, that we can connect to support each other and find ways to move forward. And actually, that's one of the reasons we wanted to have conversations like this, so people can hear from, coaches like you. So thank you so much for your authenticity, presence, and reminding us of the importance of connection and consciousness, which are 2 themes that I've seen throughout our conversation today.
It was a great pleasure, Steve and Erwin. Really great pleasure to connect with you and to have such a deep conversation about what we all love to do.
Thank you, Martin.
Thanks for tuning in to The Coaching Edge. Until next time, keep coaching and keep growing.